Koei Tecmo are a cold, calculated machine programmed with only one goal in mind, and nothing will stop them in their tracks from pumping out as many Atelier games onto the Switch as possible. I've lost count. Now this is a review of a collection of games. Yes, they are sold individually, but they are also sold as a bundle too, and so we thought we would be slightly more broad rather than repeating ourselves over 3 videos. So this is a general review of the package as a whole, to see if it's worth your hard-earned cash or not. Are they worth it digitally, or is it worth that very, very tempting import physical copy? Story-wise, this trilogy of games each have their own unique stories and starring characters, while still taking part in the same shared universe with an overarching themes and, character crossovers. This theme being the Dusk. What is the Dusk? Well, that's what you're playing the games for. Handily, the in-game stories follow in line with each other. So the first Atelier Aisha is the beginning with Eshka and Logi in the middle, and then Shaylee rounding things off in the trilogy story-wise. So while they do have connections, you have no need to worry about having to start from the beginning. You can happily start anywhere if you so desire without feeling you're missing too much. Plus, if you just fancy the first game, don't worry, each game has their own satisfying conclusion. Like I said, it's more of an overarching theme than a large connected story. Individually, they are fine, the standard Atelier type stories you may be used to by now. A heavy focus on story, lots of talking, tons of cutscenes for side character development, getting stopped every 5 seconds for more talk. People will probably complain, but that's why I enjoy these games so much. A cute main character, nice supporting cast, each with stories that you'll want to see through to the end. None of them grabbed me immediately like the recent game Atelier Ryza did, but I'm sure you'll enjoy the mysteries that these games have to offer. Gameplay follows very similarly to most games in the series. If you're unawares of the Atelier games, they're a mix of your standard JRPG battling, mixed in with item creation by gathering ingredients and fulfilling requests of the townspeople. If you've played any of the Atelier games before, you'll pretty much fit right in without any worry whatsoever. As each of your protagonists goes on about their major story arc, you'll be spending your time wandering around various environments with a task in mind. You'll be picking up vital ingredients from bushes, ponds, pretty much everywhere, and your head will be spinning at just how many things there are to collect. But don't worry, you're gonna need all of it. Picking up these materials might not be so easy, however, since there are plenty of nasty monsters hanging around too. Battling will be taking place. Each of these games has their own different battle system. They're very similar, but have little tweaks between them. It's nice to see the series always try something a little bit different each time. They're not massively different, but enough to keep it a little more fresh. I get that you may feel fatigued jumping from one game straight into another, as perhaps I did for this trilogy review, so I do advise you to have a palate cleanser game between each of these games if you buy them all. Anyways, for me, the Atelier games always come to life from their item creation. This is where all the materials you've picked up from all the environments and defeated enemies will be useful in creating pretty much everything you'll be using. At first, in each game you'll start off quite limited in your alchemic abilities, but as you grow as a character you'll be able to create more and more things. The systems may look a bit daunting at first, but the games ease you in nicely enough and generally guides you through the process. There's lots of tutorials and stuff, nothing to worry about. While all the games have the same principle, the way they are presented in each individual game makes them feel different enough, which is important. They have their little quirks and additions that have a surprising amount of depth. What may be uncomfortable to some of you is the anxiety-inducing time management. While each game handles time a little bit differently, you are most certainly up against the clock. Yes, if you don't complete the game fast enough, it's game over. Well, that's the threat anyways. Picking up ingredients passes time, moving locations passes time, even doing your Atelier mixing takes up a bunch of time. Now, if I was in your position, I'd have instantly paused this review right now and wrote a comment saying I was passing on the game because I hate being rushed. I understand, that's me. But the fact is, for the most part, the time limit is almost a facade. The only way you could possibly exceed the time limit is if you really tried your best to do so. As an example, the first game, Aisha, you have 3 in-game years to complete the overall main goal, but you'll probably be able to 100% the game within like 2 years. If that's not enough to convince you, then you may want to only pick up Atelier Shaylee, the last game in the trilogy, which completely replaced the time management with the life task system. It is a much more laid-back game. It's worth noting that these 3 releases are all based on the Plus versions of the games. If you don't know what that means, basically, these 3 games were originally released on the PlayStation 3, but then later ported to the PlayStation Vita with additional stuff, including previous DLC, updated mechanics such as party swapping anytime, new characters, costumes, and so on, and that's what you're getting here, the full, fat, definitive version. This is not the base game. And that means pretty much all the DLC ever released for them is included here, aside from one or two things. Koei wasn't clear on which couple of things were missing, and no, there will be no paid DLC. This is the full package, which, considering this is from Koei Tecmo, the kings of minor DLC, I almost feel like fainting with surprise. So, has anything been added to the ports in terms of gameplay? Well, not really, only a couple of quality of life features have been added, and although they may seem minor, they are very welcome indeed. It's kind of hilarious that the game now happily boasts a feature now allowing the character to run. Yes, front and center as a selling point is allowing the character to run. I don't know why I find that quite funny, but despite the quaintness of the boast, it is a very welcome addition. Now that gamers' time is even more precious than ever, it's nice to be able to speed up some of the more mundane things in the games. Even more so is the speeding up battle button. I wouldn't consider the battles here to be particularly long-winded, but when you've got 6 characters in your party, any little speed up is gonna help. Plus, there are a few different speeds that you can choose from. I mean, overall in terms of gameplay, you're getting standard enough but charming JRPGs with a heavy focus on the story and character interactions. When it comes to the pantheon of JRPGs on the Switch, these won't be high up on the list of greats, but that doesn't stop them from being very, very solid choices. The battle systems will probably lack something for many people, but for me, the more standard, the better. I hate overly convoluted battle systems. The alchemy will also please many people since it does have its share of depth that is always interesting to get a grip on with each entry despite similarities. Anyways, Atelier Dusk gameplay, very, very solid. Visually, well, you can tell these games are like 6 to 7 years old, a generation behind. The character models look really, really nice, but the environments leave a lot to be desired, and was probably even the case back then, especially with the first game, Aisha. That looks pretty rough. But there's a really nice art style, really working that Dusk theme very, very well, with a melancholy look to everything. I really like it despite suffering from culture shock after playing the wonderful looking Ryza. I mean, it really does show how the series has moved on and taken the necessary steps to become something more than it is. There are very few big complaints I have about these games, but one is the performance, at least in the first game, Atelier Aisha. I said it's the roughest and it shows it in its performance. I don't know why, but in certain areas the game is quite jittery. It's not lag, I don't actually know how to describe it. It's like an error that shouldn't be there. Thankfully it doesn't ruin the game despite its noticeability, and the other 2 games run smooth as butter. Hopefully there will be a patch on or after release, as I'm sure it's just an oversight somewhere. Fingers crossed. For the audio, I would struggle to go through the entire soundtrack for all 3 games, but I can easily tell you that I'm always 100% impressed with the Atelier soundtracks. They always have a magical, adventurous feeling to them, and I always hate myself for saying this, but there's always 1 or 2 songs that give me vibes of something Joe Hisashi would conjure up. Yes, saying the soundtrack has essence of Studio Ghibli is as generic as saying something is like Dark Souls-like, but you know what, I don't care. Aside from those Ghibli-esque tracks, the rest of the music is equally excellent. Lots of variety, unique instrumentation, and it always gets you excited for the adventure ahead. Quirky, interesting, catchy. I should really learn who puts these soundtracks together because they deserve far more respect from me. Hang on, let me head to Wikipedia. Daisuke Achiwa seems to be the mainstay, often with another couple of people who, change each game. Anyways, props to you, Achiwa. Koei Tecmo, you don't pay him enough. Unlike the latest Atelier games, this trilogy of releases is home to English voice acting along with Japanese. While I usually don't have a preference, I have to go with the Japanese ones, at least on the first game. The main character's English voice is just not good at all. Let's have a quick listen for comparison.
Here. Sorry for making you wait. Chew your food and eat slowly. It's not healthy to eat so fast. メガネのおじさんの教えてくれたこと、今は全部信じてみよう。ひとまず隣の村に出てみようかな。
The other 2 games, Eshka and Logi, and then Shaylee, they are much better in terms of English, but I still err towards the Japanese. Anyways, on the eShop, each of these games is priced individually at £32.99 in the UK and $39.99 in the US and Europe, with a digital bundle available for $90 and £73, which is saving yourself a bit of cash for sure. Pretty much buy 2, get 1 half price. And sadly, due to embargo timing, I can't quite warn you about the 10% pre-order offer, which certainly would have made things look a little tastier. But for that price, I don't think you can complain too much. They may seem expensive for old games, but you look at Final Fantasy X and 12, which have an even higher standard price. And you have to remember, these are niche as hell games. If you're not entirely convinced, I would wait for a sale a few months down the line. Now, both Koei Tecmo Europe and Koei Tecmo America aren't offering these as physical Switch releases. They are only available digitally in those regions. However, there are options for those who really want to snag a physical release. There's a Japanese release, but you don't want that since they don't have English, and all 3 games are separate releases, kind of expensive. But the release for other Asian regions is the one you want. Firstly, the Asian release does have English, and secondly, all 3 games come on one cartridge. Oh yes, aside from the DLC which needs to be downloaded, but that's a minor point that we can forgive. The Asian release is what you want, and it's certainly something I would have 100% picked up had Koei Tecmo not been kind enough to provide review copies for me. Anyways, if you want to pick this up as a physical copy, then there are links in the description and pinned comment as to where you can find them. They are affiliate links, so if you make a purchase, then we will also get a small cut, which helps support the team massively. So if you're going to buy it anyways, consider supporting us at the same time. But it ain't cheap, and beware of potential import tax on arrival. Let us know if you're importing this. Before we get into my final thoughts, if you're new here, consider subscribing to our channel. Make it a New Year's resolution. We offer lots of nice Switch content reviews and features, especially on Sunday and Mondays when we have bargains and then physicals releases. Plus, when we get to 50,000 subscribers, we're giving away a Nintendo Switch Lite. You can't say no to that. Overall, for me, these Atelier games are nice little additions to the plethora of RPGs now on the Switch. Atelier fans will lap these up, although casual fans or those curious about the series may want to plump for the latest entry, Atelier Ryza. In fact, as nice as these 3 games are, they made me appreciate Ryza even more than I already did. But still, 3 lovely games that capture a certain feeling that most RPGs fail to. Packed with content, there's so much going on, but at the heart of it are basic enough RPGs with nice stories that will keep you nicely occupied without ever blowing your mind with greatness. I know what you're all going to ask though, which of the 3 is the best? Well, the one I enjoyed the most is the middle one, Atelier Eshka and Logi. The partnership of the characters worked well for me, and I enjoyed the setting backstory more for this one. The weakest was Atelier Aisha, not only for the performance issues, but also, the visuals are kind of down, the production values on the voice acting and stuff. That is noticeably a step down compared to the other 2 releases. But anyways, as a package, together a healthy, solid 7.5 out of 10. Remember, if you want to pick up that Asian release physical with all of the games on one cartridge, there's a link in the description below. Be sure to check out my review of Atelier Ryza and perhaps a recent review, Super Robot Wars X. Man, I love those games. I'll see you guys over there. Take care.
I feel like something could happen. I'm getting a little nervous.